Welcome to Steel Roses, a podcast for women by women. My name is Jenny.
And I'm Melissa. And we're here to bring you honest content in a space where we can be real about the everyday challenges for women.
So welcome everybody to another episode. We are both totally exhausted, but both totally excited to be here. I just want to open with that, clear the space, put it out on the table. We're both run down, but we're both here.
We're very excited to be here. If it was anything else, we would not be, though.
We wouldn't be doing it. I'm going to be, yes. You know, and that's actually an excellent point to bring up is if this was any other task, I wouldn't be doing any of it because I was in such a foul mood about 5 to 7 minutes ago. It was so rough. So rough. But thank you guys for joining us. And we hope that you've all been enjoying the podcast. We've gotten some really great feedback. We're seeing a lot of really, really wonderful metrics, and you know, where everybody's listening from, and we're super excited to see that, you know, the podcast is gaining momentum. So, you know, I just want to say that up front. Thank you all for being with us and just continuing to listen and continuing to provide us with feedback.
Yes, we absolutely love anything you have to say, good, bad, otherwise. We are just so encouraged by the feedback, things to improve on, things to continue. So thank you guys for not only tuning in, but like giving us that info for us going forward.
Mm-hmm. And just, you know, actually a quick plug too, before we get into like our, you know, regular updates about where things are. And then we have a topic list today. But a quick update just on general stuff with us. We have, you know, everyone knows we have our website, www.steelroseswomen.com. But we also most recently launched a product recommendation page. It's linked in our website. You can find it there, or you can visit Steel Roses Favorites. With an S at the end there, steelrosesfavorites.com. And it's essentially just products that Melissa and I use and swear by and I'm staring at some of the products right now because they're in my kitchen. You know, just check it out. See if, you know, something, you know, piques your interest or whatever, but it's just things that we've tried out and tested and really, really love, and wanted to kind of bring to all of you. So I just wanted to do a quick plug there for that. So let's get into the meat and potatoes here. I know from my side of the fence, summer is ending in terms of my kids' summer break, and the the strain of it is real. And I think Melissa, everybody who knows me, I've literally been counting the days for the past like 2 weeks. I love having the kids home, and when they're at school, we definitely feel it. The quiet during the day, it's like kind of jarring after a while. But at this point in August, it's August 26th to be exact, because at some point, whenever you listen to this pod or this episode, but at this point in August is about when we're all ready to kill each other. Like the kids are at each other's throats. Me and my husband can't take it anymore. Like if like one more straw, school needs to start tomorrow, basically. If one more straw lands on this camel's back, I'm going to lose my friggin' mind. It's going to happen.
See, we keep it real here. We keep it.
It's bad. I know I'm not supposed to say stuff like that. And I'm sure that I'm supposed to say.
How many mothers really feel like that? Like, and you see the memes and the jokes, but it's like, it's a legit thing. Like,
no, but it's like really real. Oh my God. It's like, it's like mind boggling how strenuous this is at this point in time. And it's been honestly really lovely summer. Like we had a really, really great summer, but like kids don't even want to go in the pool anymore. Like we have a pool in our backyard. They don't even care. They don't even go in the pool anymore. Like everybody's just, they're over it. They don't care. They're over everything. The play, everything, nothing. They don't care about anything. They're just done with it. And they keep telling me they miss their friends, and I get it. So yeah, like what I was about to say was I'm sure that there's a lot of, you know, women out there that are like, oh, but you have to cherish those moments. I do. I absolutely cherish those moments, but I also cherish my sanity. And, you know, it's starting to crack a little
like
bit.
everything's got to keep in balance. So.
Yeah, we need some give and take here. How are things going on your side, Melissa? I know how things are going on your side because we haven't spoken.
You're like, literally, we have like not even exaggerating, it's like 3-minute windows. Like
yes.
first we'll play phone tag for about a day and a half, and then like we'll catch each other, and one of us is always like, okay, I have literally like 3.5 minutes, so
yeah,
go.
It's so rude, but I literally pick the phone, and it's okay because it's Melissa, but like I pick the phone up and I don't even say hi. I just say, you have 2.5 minutes before my next meeting. Go ahead. What do you need? And she's like, oh, she has to just, and then Mimi's like, let me talk to her.
We end our conversation like that. That's it. We're out of time for today. Thank you for joining. And
we literally don't. It's actually funny you mentioned that because now that I think about it, we don't even close out our conversations. We're like, all right, like talk to you later. We're like, all right, time's up. All right,
like, bye. Window is closing. And that's about, yes, that is how both of our lives are going right now. I have the semester, so college semesters always start earlier than, the elementary, high school schedule. So, and then here in Florida, we go back even early. So this week will be my second week of resuming teaching. One class is online and then one is in person this semester. So it's it's just getting back into the swing of things, getting back into the routine, trying to fit another ball in the air.
Another priority.
And, it's weird because as I'm thinking about it, I'm like do you ever have those moments where it's like the busier you are, the more productive you are because you have to be so concise and so particular about your time?
Yes.
And like just that little added pressure like lights a fire under your ass.
And then you're like flying basically.
Yeah, because this summer I really did try to be productive, and overall I was way more productive this summer because I tend to not teach in the summers. So I have to say overall with the pod and everything else we have going on, like I definitely was more productive, but I found in the last week, like it's that added pressure that makes me like I'm staying up later, I'm getting up earlier. Not that that's necessarily a good thing, but it does like put a fire under my butt a little bit.
Yeah.
Which is weird because I feel like, I'm being more productive with the added pressure, but it's not a healthy, like I need to. But I've been like that since.
I also feed on that.
Right? Like, it's almost like I test myself, like, oh, how close. And my mom used to make fun of me because I used to do this with school. Like sometimes we all know, like you used to joke about how freaking organized and how much
I'm going to make a comment about that in about 2 minutes.
How much of a nerd I was. But there were some weeks where like I would just turn it off and then I would try to accomplish what I should have done for like 4 days in like one night. And it was almost like a test, like, oh, can I do this? Like, can I? And my mom would be like, what are you doing? And like, when I would pull it off, it would be like, oh, see, like I did do it. And like, so it's a weird, I don't know. It's a weird thing I've had about like, I need really that like added pressure to like turn all my jets on, it's a weird thing. So anyway.
Yeah, that's interesting though about you. Like, because I mean, you've always been like very driven. Like, I mean, I'm psychotic, but you've been like that since I didn't start really getting crazy until I was like, further along. But I remember like seeing you in high school, and this is the story I wanted to tell because it's really funny. I went for the weekend to spend the weekend down at Melissa's house.
That was fun. That was finals week. Was that college or high school?
You know what? I don't remember.
I think it was college.
Are you sure?
I think it was like part of Thanksgiving break. I think that's what it was. I think it was like my first year in college or second year in college.
In any case, I went to spend the weekend and I came in and I'm like talking to Melissa's mom and we're like chatting or whatever. And Melissa's at the table. She's like hunched over this table with all these index cards all over the table. And she was like mumbling to herself. And I was like, and my aunt goes, oh, she's just studying. She's really focused. I was like, obviously. I was like, hey, man, what's up? You were like, you're like, hey. And then you just kept going. And I'm not even, I was there for like, and one night, like 2 days, a couple weeks later, I'm like, yeah, what's up? Like whenever I'm like chatting with Melissa,
Oh,
and she's like,
that's
yeah. She's like, I haven't seen you in a while. And I was like, dude, I literally just saw you a couple weeks ago. What are you talking about? Melissa had no recollection that I had actually been at the house. Like she didn't have no recollection that I was there. And I was like, oh my God. I do want to say something here too, though, about like the that strain that you put on yourself. So because I'm similar in the sense that like when I have a lot more pressure, I actually work better. And
right. Like I perform better. It's weird, right? It's like
think it's
counterintuitive, but
I think it has something to do with the fact that we both really feed off of being able to control stuff.
yes.
And because we both really feed off of being able to control things, that's like the ego in us is saying, I need to control all these things because that's how I can guarantee that I know what's about to happen. And by the way, I'm educating you based off of these classes that I took. That's literally what's happening right now. That's what I'm doing to you.
You're like the classes that you haven't been able to partake
the classes
in,
that you couldn't do. I'm giving you the snapshot summary. So it's basically our ego. Everyone has an ego part of them and then the natural flow part of them. And our ego parts love to control, like in my case and your case. And that's where you get kind of like high off of it. You basically, it's like an endorphin rush because you've controlled the situation so well that you now have like hit
that makes sense.
That success
like
point.
You do get a rush. Like I get a rush from like,
that's even like my
like, look, hey, like I did that.
Yeah.
Like I 100%. Accomplished all these things in this amount of time and I did it.
Like, I get like a massive ego rush from that. And it's really not a healthy way to do it.
No, it really, that's what I was like. It's not a good thing.
I'm trying really hard not to be like that anymore because it's not in flow with me. It doesn't really help. It feeds.
Let's take a quick break.
Are you interested in podcasting but not sure where to start? My name is Jenny Benitez, and I'm here to help guide you through your podcast launch and maintenance. Check out the link in the episode description for Podcasting Unboxed, your comprehensive startup guide. I am very excited to work with you.
Well, it's funny because you mentioned that story because it's pretty comical, but also it I've worked really hard to get the perfectionist in me out under control because I have to say, like, up until probably my first year in graduate school, I was like perfectionist. Like I needed like my GPA, like this sounds sick because it is sick, but like from 6th grade to the end of my PhD, I had never gotten a B. Like I've only gotten straight A's. And I was like salutatorian, my high school graduating class, like the whole shebang, right? But it was really unhealthy because up until probably my senior year in undergrad, I was like, holy shit, like this perfectionist drive in me is so strong that I'm missing, like, you know, when it's like you want to get to the destination, like you want to graduate or you want to get this job or whatever, but you don't appreciate the journey there.
Yes.
Like I feel like that's what was happening to me. And not just in school, but like in other areas. And I was like, damn, like then this drive to like be perfect, finish tasks, like exactly on point. Like it was taking away from my learning experience. It was taking away from like me being grounded in the moment. And I was like, this is super unhealthy. And
Yeah.
finally I was able to get a grip on it. Like when I took a break from undergrad to graduate school, and like when I entered graduate school, I really tried to get a handle on it, because I was like, I'm not going to bust my ass and not be there for the right reasons. Like this isn't about like getting the A. It doesn't matter. And like it, and I always say to myself, like, it's funny because my husband and I are very similar in certain ways and then opposites in the other. So he was the jock in high school. And he's very intelligent, but he would be the guy that could like study 15 minutes before homeroom or whatever,
Mm-hmm.
and then pass the test enough to get the B.
I was never like that, by the way. I always had to like.
Yeah, like he could just do it. And like he's an engineer, and he like beat me out on the SATs pretty significantly. And like it's just crazy. And he really did. Like his math score, he almost got a perfect math score. Now his reading, I beat him, but his math score was just insane.
And my SATs were embarrassing, but go ahead, keep going.
But I always say this, like he never had that drive for perfection, but he always knew that he had the, you know, ability to, and his career path has been much more straightforward. Like it's just in terms of like where our careers are at on paper, people would value his higher. So it's just, you know, like I try to, anyway, this has been a very long tangent, but my point being is that I'm already seeing signs in my daughter that she has that perfectionist quality. Like she gets really frustrated if something like say she's drawing a picture, or she was completed, like playing a game or doing something, and like she's like, she'll go, oh no, it's ruined. Like if she if there's a misstep, and I was like, no, like I'm really trying to cultivate a different type of environment, because I was like, I don't want her to have that. Like I think it was detrimental to me.
Yeah.
Because this fear like of failure, or fear of not doing it perfect, would stop me sometimes, or make me anxious, or make me hesitate. And that, I think, you end up closing doors on yourself.
Yes.
So anyway, it's just funny to come full circle. Now when I see Mia do that, I'm like, no, it's great. Like you learn from your mistakes, or you learn from this, and it's crazy because she's only 3, but I was like, I don't want, and I put that pressure on myself. Both of my parents were not like that. Like they did not give a crap, like whether I had an A, a B, a C, like as long as I was doing okay and I tried my hardest, like that's all they cared about. But I put that pressure on myself so intensely that like when I see these tendencies in her, I'm actively trying to not cultivate that in her. And I know other parents take other approaches, but I was like, I don't want her to have that, because I've only seen my perfectionism as detrimental to my in my growth path, you know.
There's like a couple things you said there, and I know this wasn't actually the plan today for discussion, but I have to say, you actually said a couple things that are really important, and I actually kind of want to unpack it a little bit. So the first thing that I wanted to point out is that this drive that you have towards perfection, and I already mentioned that this is like this thing that you and I both have, that because we need to control something. Like it makes me feel good when I feel like I have controlled everything around me.
Yeah.
I was talking on a prior, I don't know, well, the previous episode that I interviewed Coach Nami, and and on the episode that posted most recently, and you can find that, guys. You can find it in our Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts. You'll see it. There was an episode where I interviewed Coach Nami, and after the episode was done, her and I were talking for like an hour after the episode, but she's very insightful. I actually might hit her up for coaching. She was really, really good. And one of the things she said to me, and it applies here to you, is that we were talking through like different things, and I was explaining about how like I've been meditating and trying to get away from the whole control factor, because there's a lot of things about me now that happen due to me being so in control. Like case in point, like my career. I'm really, really good at my job. I love my job so much. I'm really, really good at it. but the reason why I'm really, really good at it is because I like to control stuff. And for my line of work, controlling everything leads to success. That's why it has fed my ego so much. And ego, when I say ego, I don't mean like egotistical. I mean, there's a part of you. It's like the ego inside you.
Right.
It's not egotistical. It's like a part of your persona. And when I was talking through it with her, all of a sudden I said to her, I was like, well, I wasn't always like this. I was like, I did always like to lead and I did always like to be in charge. I was like, but I guess I didn't really get overly like as bad as I am now. I was like, it happened over time. I was like, but it actually started in my early 20s when I was, battling like depression. That. You knew it, right? You knew where I was going
exactly
with this.
When
it happened in my early 20s when I was battling depression, anxiety, and all the things that I was going through. And I actually distinctly remember a moment where it was like a light switch went on and I was like, I'm not doing this anymore. Okay, I'm taking over. And that was the ego of me. That was the ego part of me saying, I'm going to save you. And it did. So there's parts that there's sometimes it's good. And what I wanted to tell you is that, and this is what Coach Nami said to me, and Kathy Heller has said this too, is that you almost have to acknowledge and thank your ego for doing what it did, because it, for whatever reason, triggered. So your ego is like the perfectionism and the control. And for whatever reason, your ego was triggered and it brought you all the way through to like where you're at right now. So it's not a negative, it's not great. You don't want to keep doing it, but there was a reason it happened.
Right. And we both wouldn't be in the spots that we are today.
Exactly. Like, so you kind of have to acknowledge it and say like, you know what, like I know mine saved me. So I'm like, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. But like, chill out. We don't have to be like this anymore. We're okay now. You can back off a little bit. We can get into the flow. You don't have to be in control anymore. And then, so I wanted to point that out to you because as you were talking, I started thinking about that. I'm like, this applies to you too, because, even if you started feeling that strain for perfection, and I know your parents, obviously, like I know that they wouldn't have put that on you, but it happened for a reason. You triggered for a reason. And that's why like it kind of just kind of stayed with you.
And I think it comes back to everything has to be in balance, right? So to an extent, we wouldn't have the drive we have in life in general without it, to a certain extent.
To a certain extent, yeah.
And I think for me, there was a lot of elements outside of my control between my parents and step parents and other just logistics that I couldn't control around me. And I think for me, it was something that I could tangibly hold on to in my life and then feel like, okay, even though there might be some chaos around me, I'm okay because I can just focus in on that.
Because I can focus in on this.
And I can control this part of
bingo.
So I definitely know. And you know what? Like you said, to a certain extent, it saves you, right? It pushes you.
It saves you.
It gets you through whatever moment that you're in.
Yeah.
And it definitely propelled both of us forward.
Oh, for sure. And I leaned heavily on this ego all the way up until about 2 years ago. Like, I mean, this is not like, and I didn't even really understand what was going on until like 2 weeks ago. So like, this is like a really like a revelation for me. That's why I was like, let me say this to Melissa, because
no, it's huge,
but it's big because, and it's true. You don't want it to impact your kids.
So many women have that.
Yes.
And
100%.
I think for those of us that are triggered by ourselves, I think we're socialized to also think that it's a good thing, right?
Yeah. Oh,
to aim for perfection, to have control over all these different elements in our lives. Like, it's perceived as a good thing.
100%. 100%. Like, I mean, I think I've even said it on other episodes. and that shows like the growth across these episodes. Like if you listen to how I talked in our first few episodes versus now, it is a little different, because I think that like you and I joked about it, is like I used to say it was like a badge of honor. Like, you know, like
literally
go doing this to yourself. And it's like, no, it's let's not do that anymore. Like, this is ridiculous. And you're right. I don't think, and it isn't just us, because as you were talking through the whole perfectionism thing, and you being a perfectionist, that's actually applicable across women. And I had read, and I think I might have said this before too, but there was studies done, or information was produced that women won't apply to a job unless they're 100% qualified.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's right.
Remember I said that?
Yeah.
And that, like, I remember reading that and being like, that's true, actually. Like, when I would job search or whatever, when I was looking for jobs or looking for moves and stuff like that, I remember like looking through stuff being like, oh, I shouldn't apply to that. Maybe I should go a level down because I don't know all that stuff.
Yeah.
It's like, well, no. And even like in, you know, just everyday life, like women consistently are always trying to be perfect at something. And we're always trying to get, you know, everything has to be 100%. Like, I mean, Melissa, remember I was like, I'm like a lunatic. I have so much on my plate. Let me try to also pack these perfect, adorable lunches for my kids. Like, no, what the hell am I doing? Like, I'm freaking exhausted. I'm like, why am I trying to do this? Like, here, let's put money in your account so you can all buy lunch. Like, we don't remember. I told you that. Do you remember?
Because I remember texting you, and I'm like, Hudson, you have so much on your plate.
You were like, are you seriously taking this on? And I was like, I can do it.
and you're like, it'll save money. I was like, I don't think so, because when you're doing all these like cutesy little things, like it adds.
Yeah, it really, honestly, it does. Not to mention the fact that half of the time, half of the food was coming back.
Yes.
And I was getting really mad. And then there were times where it would come back completely empty. And I knew when that happened that they actually threw it out at school. Because, and I said, I'm like, you guys, you can't do that to mommy. Like, mommy needs to see. But then mommy would get mad. So their reaction was like, let me just throw it all out.
And then she's
I
not the wiser.
I don't even know. I have no words for this. I don't have any words for it. I do want to point out something too. And because you mentioned that Mia is you know, starting to get frustrated when she doesn't have things perfectly done. Genevieve is like that as well. One of my twins. Yeah, one of my twins is like that. And the teacher actually talked to me about it, and she had told me, she was like, yeah, she gets, if she doesn't I just have to say this. My husband is upstairs with my stepson. They're playing video games, and it is 10:30 at night, and if they wake the other kids up, I'm going to lose my mind. I'm just saying it. Like, I know this has no relevance to what we're talking about, but I keep, eventually when these videos are posted, I keep looking to the side, because I'm like, if they friggin' wake the kids up, I'm going to lose it. What I want to tell you, sorry, I digressed.
Because we can't hear it. I can't hear it in the background.
I keep
seeing your eyes travel. I was like, what is she looking at?
And that's why I undid one of my headphone, like, and I pushed it to the side because I'm listening. This is the mental load of motherhood. You're seeing it in real time.
We're keeping it real. We are, this episode, we are really,
this is legit.
Maybe a little too real.
But my Genevieve's teacher had flagged it to me, and she was like, yeah, she gets, like, if she doesn't get it 100%, or if she, you know, writes her name just and the letter is crooked, she gets so pissed off. She crumbles the whole paper. She throws it out. Like, and I'm like, oh my God. So when the kids are home, like, we do a lot of like drawing. So on YouTube, you can look up drawing tutorials for kids, and it's really simple pictures. And we all sit at the table together, and I'll put it on the TV, and we all like try to do it. And what I do a lot with the kids, because Genevieve's the only one it was flagged with, but I do it for everybody, is that I'll explain to them with just the drawings and be like, oh, like, this is so cool. And they're like, mommy, yours is perfect. And I'm like, first of all, mommy's older than you. I've been doing this longer, so you can't even compare. I was like, but that's not the point. I was like, art is supposed to be an expression from everybody. And I'm using art as like the cornerstone to teach them, like, everyone's expression is different. So what you are going to do in your, you know, for whatever, I'm like, it's going to come out slightly differently. That's okay. It's supposed to be different. You're different. We're not all the same people. So I like exhaust myself, like counseling my children like this all day long.
And I know it sounds ridiculous because she just turned 3, but like today she was drawing something and it's my husband's father's birthday. So we were drawing a card and a picture for her, and I think she got mixed because she was going to draw her grandpa,
Mm-hmm.
and then she was going to draw a son, but she drew the son bigger, like it was like the head of the person, and she goes, "No, it's ruined." And I was like, "No, it's a beautiful son. Let's finish the picture." So I didn't, because she used to crumple it up and like start all over. And so now I'm encouraging. I'm like, no, let's just finish it out. And like, so she finished drawing. I was like, "Look, Mia, doesn't that look great?" And she was like, "Yeah, it looks beautiful." I was like, "Yeah, see how pretty?" Like, because I want her to get that message that just because it's not exactly the way you intended,
that it's okay,
doesn't mean it's not worth something. And what was the other thing? The other week, I think it was, she was doing a puzzle or something. But again, the same message. Like, I'm like, see, this is how, like, I literally stop whatever I'm doing when she does have moments. And again, she's 3, so it's few and far between. I'm just hypersensitive to it because I recognize it from myself.
Mm-hmm.
But what I really do take the time and just, I stop whatever I'm doing and like I really do walk her through it. I'm like, no, see, like this is I was like, see, this is how we learn. Like this is how we and because I really want to drive home that message so she doesn't take away like, oh no, everything has to, when it's perfect, this is when it's good. It's like, no, even, it doesn't have to be perfect to be a great outcome,
what I
and again,
do
it sounds
too,
ridiculous because she's 3, but I feel like if you set the message now, as she gets older, it will be less and less of a concern.
What I do too, which also might be helpful, and I started doing this. I've been, the way I talk to my kids now, I've been talking to them since they were like little. Like so Mia being 3 has, do it. Like you need to do it now. Mm-hmm. The other thing that I do too, that I think might be helpful too, is when scared, when you, I'm not scared. I'm not scared of what I'm about to say. I'm just scared of all the noises.
For our listeners, I just keep seeing Jenny's eyes. Just darting to like she's seeing a ghost. It's a little
well, it also doesn't help that I'm in by myself downstairs in a corner with a light on and everything else is dark, so that doesn't help either. What I was going to say to you is make it a point to point out when you make a mistake.
Oh yeah.
So like if you're doing something, and then the other part that I'll do sometimes is for example, because I know that you eat eggs. This is the only reason why I'm going to say this, but you can use it in other senses. When you crack an egg and she cracks an egg, the egg breaks. That's okay. The egg's broken. It's okay if it's broken. Like it's okay if it's messy. And then when you scramble it, it's going to look different. Your scramble is going to be different from her scramble, but it's still delicious and it's still all going to kind of look the same. And it's okay that it's different.
Yeah, that's a good example.
Like, there's stuff like that,
things that they can grasp.
That they can grasp. Yeah. And I've done that a lot. And like the other thing that like I'll do to them too is because the girls don't do it as much. But Vincent does it where he'll like down talk himself and he'll like hit and he'll be like, oh, I can't do anything. And he'll like, if he gets, really? Oh yeah. Like if he's had like a kind of a tough day and he's gotten in trouble a lot at the end of the day, like he's like, oh, I'm just so, I'm so dumb. And I'm like, buddy, well, what are you talking about? I had read somewhere that you should never rush to say, no, you're not. And like this, or you should never, if they're ever like, oh, I hate myself. That happens. My kids say that sometimes. And I have to restrain myself from being like, don't say that. You shouldn't say, like, because I don't want them to feel like they need to keep that to themselves. If they feel it, then that feeling is real. They're frustrated with themselves. So instead of being like, no, you're amazing, I'll be like, well, why do you hate yourself? What's wrong? And I let them like kind of explain it to me.
Like have a full on.
Tell me what's wrong. Like I'm not going to try to like, because
you don't want to smother out the feeling.
Right. Well, and plus like, not for nothing. How can we expect our children to just be happy all the time? Like you really think about it. Like And I get pissed at my kids when they're in bad moods. Like I'll admit it. Like obviously it's frustrating all around, but like at the same time, I do try to remember they're people. Like
Yeah.
they're my children, but they're people. Like so they're gonna have bad days. They're gonna have days where something is bothering them and it's in their head and they can't quite identify what it is, but it's gonna make them act like a jerk. You know, like it's stuff like that that like I think gets missed with kids. And then you have, you know, people that will like try to smother them with like, no, you're amazing. It's like, well, if they're feeling down, talk to them about it.
Yeah.
Why are you feeling down, buddy? Like, what's wrong?
Well, and this we'll have to save this for a different episode but that's why I love, there's this great parenting book called No Drama Discipline. And they sort of, the authors distinguish themselves very much away from like gentle parenting, because I think gentle parenting gets this rap about like, oh, then you just let your kid do whatever you want, and like no drama discipline isn't like that. But the one of the again, we could talk about this in another episode, but one of the founding like principles of it, which is kind of like what you're saying, is they drive home the point that you have to like really get on the floor with your kids and connect.
Yeah.
And like understand what is frustrating them instead of, and kind of like you said, instead of, well, in this case, it's about like discipline, right? But like, instead of like saying, no, you can't do that, or you can't, like before smothering them and like, you can or you cannot do, they really drive home that you have to get on their level and understand what they're thinking and what their thought process is in order to respond properly. And then in order to have them understand your point of view too, and how you want them to respond to something. So
that makes sense.
It's an interesting, you know, like I think a lot of the newer, more nuanced parenting approaches really drive that home.
As you were talking, I was running through my day today with the kids, and then I started feeling a little bit bad because I literally said, I was like, God, I can't wait for you all to be in school. Like I told them a couple of times today, like I feel like such an asshole. I'm not an asshole. I swear to God, I love the shit out of my kids. I will walk over broken glass for them. Like I would do anything for them. But this is really a tough time of year for me. I'll lose my mind. I love them so much, though. They make me so happy.
I think that is parenting in a nutshell. Like
I know they make me so happy, but I'm gonna blow my brains out.
I was like texting with my one of my really good friends. Her baby is probably like 6 months old now, 7 months old, and she just went back to work. And she's like, it just comes with a lot of anxiety, a lot of frustrations, a lot of things. And I was like, dude, it's totally fine. I was like, literally, Mia is the best thing to ever happen to me.
Oh,
but
100%.
My first 100%. Day going back to campus this past week, I freaking wanted to blow my brains out.
Yeah.
Because I was like, oh my God, I'm going to pull my hair out. Like,
I know. I think I talked to you on that day.
Right?
I vaguely recall.
Because like she was not feeling good. She's had a cold this past week, and like she was really, really tired, and she like just didn't want me to leave. And like I was trying to get ready and get out of the house, and I was just like, and when I came back, like I was like, you know, I sat with her and like talked, and I was like, I'm sorry, Mommy was just having a bad moment. But it's like, but that's what parenting, you know,
I know. I love them so much, but it's really
highs and lows, right?
It really is a lot of highs and lows, you know. And I will say, I do very much appreciate my kids, and I am constantly impressed by them and like things they do. And I'm so proud of them because they show little glimpses and little signs of maturity and picking up of these teachings that my husband and I, like, we really go bananas. Like my parents think we're nuts. Like when my parents are here, I'm not even kidding. My dad was here the other day. Actually, I went a little off on this, and my dad was here the other day, and I could sense that he was like, all right, just calm down. Like, you're okay. But Vicente, typical big brother. You know, he reminds me a lot of my older brother. And I think I've said this before. Like, he does these things that make me think of my older brother, because my older brother teased me relentlessly, and he does these things to the twins. And I immediately am triggered. Like, I am immediately triggered as if he's doing them to me. It's so wild. But part of the reason why I also get triggered is because I want my daughters to know that, like, I'm not just letting it happen. And I know kids will be kids. I hate that phrase, but I know kids will be kids. I know siblings will get at each other. I think that's just part of it from what I am understanding. But I don't like it. And there's certain things that I don't like. And there's certain things that I'm like, I'm not going to tolerate this and just kind of sit here and let it go. So I forget what Vincent was doing something. He was bothering one of the girls, and he kept taking something from them, or he wouldn't give it to them, whatever it was. And I interjected and was like, you have to stop. I'm telling you right now, you're going to go to your room. And I was like fighting with my 7-year-old, like literally fighting with him. And my dad's sitting next to me, and he's kind of watching the whole thing go back and forth. And eventually he stopped, but I was all like agitated. And my dad was like, well, he's like, well, it's normal. Like, it's, part of siblings. And I was like, no. I was like, no. I was like, I'm telling you. I was like, it's fine. I was like, I get some teasing. I get it. I was like, but I'm not going to just stand by while he bothers her to the point where she's crying. I was like, I'm not going to stand by and watch that. Like, because then that's telling her, it's telling her mommy's not going to help you. And I'm not ever having that happen. And it's also telling her that it's okay for him to do that to her, and that she should just suck it up. Right. Now, there's a lot of instances where, like, my oldest, like Vincent, is very like alpha male, so annoying. He's very alpha male and is like, this is mine and it's my way. And my daughters take a lot after me, and they're like, no, it's not your way. It's my way. And therein lies the problem, because they have an alpha female mother and an alpha male father, and where it's like, now it's a problem. And so they butt heads a lot. And I always assess the situation at hand. I never just hand it over to anybody, because I don't want them to ever by default be like, well, it's okay. The boys always get it, or it's okay. Right. And I'm like, I don't care if I completely lose my marbles in the next few years trying to drive this home, but like, I just can't let it go. I can't let it go, and I can't let it go for them, Yeah.
No, I completely get it. And I think, again, this, circling back to our discussion about perfectionism but I think this is about recognizing something that we've experienced, something within ourselves, and maturing over time, and now being able to create or form different messages for the next generation, for our children, Yeah. And I think that's one of the best things that we can do as parents. And it doesn't even just apply to children. It's that self-reflection for anybody in different circumstances, whether it's like you have that self-reflection and then you change your approach with your friends, or you change your approach with your family members, or whatever. In our instances, it's with our children, but it's like, I think, and not patting ourselves on the back, but I think that is a really important process that not everybody gets to that point. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No, 100%. I don't, and it is, you're right. I don't think, I know that what Chris and I do is unique to what Chris and I do. Like, and same with you and Matt. Now, I will say this, Mia, when she comes here, is very sweet, and she was very like, and she's very well spoken and very respectful. Like, you can tell that like what you're doing is like, and she's like, okay. Yeah. Okay. I'll go with the girls. I like going with the girls. I'll go with the girls. Like, she's just very like, you can tell that she is picking things up. You'll see it more when she's very like observant. 5, 6-er.
Yeah, like I'll say that for her, for a 3-year-old, I feel, and like, all parents think that their children are special, but I genuinely, I do think that she's very observant, and she I forget when that triggered. I think it was early. It was like she had just turned 2. And I realized that if I sat her down and I explained to her why something had to be like, and I gave her a choice. Like I would give her like, okay, Mia, like we really have to go because we have to go do X. So if I give you, we can either go now, or if I give you 2 more minutes, will you come with mommy? And like, and I quickly learned that like if I actually took the time to like explain it to her and then give her an option, it would just click.
Yeah.
And like, so she's very much a thinker. She like observes and then she thinks about it and then she processes. If I don't, it's all like, it's a very different scenario. And I'm like, all right, like just like you said, and you have, because I've seen you before I had kids, I've seen you approach your children like, hey, these are little people. Like, yes, they're people. Yeah. Like we have to, and I've taken sort of a similar approach in that. And I feel like it's worked so much better. And I think the more self-reflection I have on myself and the same thing with you, like we're able to process that and then use it to our advantage with our children.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. And that's another thing that like, this is another thing that kind of drives us crazy because my husband does the same thing. We're very like real with the kids. Like we're very blunt and honest with them. And within, obviously we're not going to be over the top, but we're very real with them. So if they ask a question, we will give them we'll explain the whole thing to them and give them like ins and outs. And like, for example, like the girls will be like, oh, well, how did we get into your belly? The kids ask that question quite a bit. And then like, they're like, well, how did we come out? And I'm like, how did you come out, or how did babies come out? And they're like, well, how did we come out? I'm like, oh, well, they cut here. And I'll like kind of, and they're like, oh, okay. And I do it like for a lot of reasons. I don't want my kids ever to be like, oh, mommy never told us any of this stuff. And they go out into the world and they're like totally blindsided by everything. So we do.
Or really, like that like, oh, that realization, like, oh, mommy was lying to us. Like,
yeah,
it's like,
it is a lot harder. I will admit it is a hard style of parenting because we're so on top of them and we're so communicative with them.
And it's exhausting. Like
it's exhausting.
Instead of just being like, because I said so, if you take that, 5 minutes.
I never say that. I never say that.
I've never said that.
I have never said it. I never will say it. I'm never going to say you need to do this because I told you to. I need there to be some understanding of why.
Yeah.
I can never have it. And then there's a lot of instances my kids fight me tooth and nail. Like I have to be honest. I am not the parent that they are as respectful of. And I don't want to say like I'm like my husband gets upset because he's like, oh, they're scared of me. I'm like the monster. And I was like, I wish they were friggin' scared of me. They don't listen to shit I say. Like guys, could you please put your seatbelts on? Do you know I can't even tell you the seatbelt fight every time. I don't understand. I really don't understand it. It's like a constant source of stress for me when I go out with them is the seatbelt fight. But it's an exhausting type of parenting because you're just constantly like having to be thinking it through and explaining things to them. And I'm hoping that it will bring them to a better path and bring them to a better future and do prepare them for the world and going out there. But it's just like it is. It's incredibly exhausting.
I will say, like, I'm going to get you a copy of that No Drama Discipline, and then we're going to have a episode on it because,
you know what? Yeah.
Because it really, and that's exactly what they say. They admit it full on in the book. They're like, this type of parenting approach, freaking tiring.
God.
You're just not going to be able to do it in certain moments. But like overall, if you take this approach, what you're doing is not only letting your children realize like, okay, this is how, more or less you want to behave in certain situations,
right.
But also long term, they're showing like, hey, like these studies are showing it makes them less impulsive.
Mm-hmm.
It creates, children, teenagers, then adults that don't cave to peer pressure.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And there is, they take less extreme risks.
That makes
God. Right. So like in the end, they're like, hey, and they put this all in the book to like be like, listen, it is worth it, but they're completely upfront where they're really like, it's freaking exhausting.
It's interesting that I'm doing the method.
Maybe you're doing the method without ever I read the book and then changed my parenting style.
Because it's so much easier to just say like,
to you, cousin, because
oh my God, it's so I have to I have to give a lot of props to my husband too, because he's home with them majority of the day and I'm at work.
We should also have another episode on that, because
I know, because I don't think that many people know about it. I mentioned it when I was I mentioned it at work from my colleagues the other day. I was chatting with my colleagues and I said something about my husband. He works, he has his own like company and he does his own thing, but he helps me 9 to 5. Like he covers the kids 9 to 5 for me so that I can work. And not a lot of people know that. And they wouldn't even peg him for that.
And I was going to say, because you guys are so way more traditional, quote unquote traditional than
we are very traditional. Yeah.
That I think it flips people when they're like, yes. Oh, wait, like.
Yeah. And, full disclosure for the listeners too. I actually am quite traditional in the sense of I take my homemaker responsibilities pretty seriously. And I actually do put them on me. Like and this is like, it's so funny because I am a feminist, but I do very much value the traditional like father, mother roles in the house. Like I do have a lot of, I just do. And so does my husband. And that's part of the reason why it works. So it's interesting because I value that so much and I wanted him because I saw that in him and I saw what an amazing,
like I remember having that conversation.
Yeah, I specifically saw in him a good traditional man, and I saw how great he was with my stepkids, and I was like, this is the guy. But then there's this other this feminist Jenny that's also inside of me that's like, what are we doing here? So it's women. And then there's like the third, who's the mother, who's like doesn't want to do any of this. It's crazy. I know we like hit on did we hit on a bunch
different?
Did we?
Different.
We did.
And nothing that we planned on.
Nothing that we planned.
Kind of funny. But some episodes are our best episodes.
I know. I will say this. We have a really interesting upcoming episode then, because we didn't talk about a bunch of stuff that we had planned.
I think this fit with the weeks that we've been having.
Yes.
Again, just talking about, and this all ties in our desire for control, and sort of trying to squash that and just being observant about our kids. This all ties into things that we've talked about before, about the mental load of motherhood, about self-reflection and self-improvement. So I think it's in line with our other topics, but it really fit, I think, even though this was a complete tangent, I think it really did fit how our the past 2 weeks have been for both of us.
Yeah. And honestly, in the interest of staying in line with this podcast, like the foundation of this podcast was really about being realistic about what it is to be a mother for us, and like bringing that conversation to the forefront, because you're going to encounter everyone out there that's going to put on the pretty Instagram or pretty Snapchat image of perfect motherhood and perfect family. And I have a whole bunch of pictures that I sent to Melissa earlier today that was so adorable.
It really was
my
cute.
Day. But I was tired. I was hot. I was hungry. For some reason, I have PMS and I don't even know where that's coming from. Like there's a whole lot of like this me personal stuff too, that I'm like, oh, this sucks. And I'm tired. I'm grouchy and I got to do laundry, whatever. Like, but the pictures were gorgeous. So like, like it's a lot of it, but I rambled, but like the point is we wanted to still talk through everything we talked through, because it's real stuff that we're going through, and we think some of you might be going through this too. If we're going through this, someone else for sure is going through this. And if you are listening to this episode and even if it's not you, but it's somebody you know, and you want to be like, hey, like I heard this, and kind of give them the info. Help someone else with this too. Like don't let someone else struggle. If you see that they're like having a tough time trying to like hit that perfect marker, it's like, no, you don't have to be perfect. Like relax about it. It's just, that's really what we want people to take away here is we're all human. We're all struggling. We're all trying to make it happen. Like, let's just be kind to each other.
And I think one of the biggest drivers of this podcast to begin with was to bring these conversations out into the open, because so many women do have this, whether it's self-inflicted or not, this expectation of perfection, being the perfect mom, being the perfect wife, being the perfect partner, whatever. You don't talk about it.
Yeah.
So like when you are struggling, when you have weeks where it's just like, oh my gosh, like I just am exhausted. It's like a lot of people don't have those conversations.
No.
And the more exposure these real life situations get, more of these conversations that are being had out in the open, in public, I think the easier it gets for women to be real and to not have all those pressures placed on them.
Yeah, and maybe take some pressure off.
Yeah. So I think even though this was kind of a ramble episode, I think it really fits in with what the message that we're trying to bring home, like once again.
Yeah, exactly. I think that was really, really nicely put. I have nothing to add to that. Also because I'm tired.
It is now 11 o'clock, guys, at night. So
and for us, and for me, this is like breaking night, like, which is funny because I used to go out at 11 o'clock and now I'm like, what is happening right now? I'm so cold, but I love it. But again, I digressed again. I will say this. Prior to the recording, I was feeling kind of down, and doing this and recording and doing the podcast, it brings so much joy. It really does bring me a lot of joy.
It's such an uplift. It really gets, and I was kind of in a funk myself today too. We were supposed to travel and go see, be up north with everybody, and like it just couldn't happen because my daughter got sick, and what are you going to do? But like I've been in a pissy funk for the past 2 days. So this once again has, it really does uplift us, guys. Like when we say it, like we really do find joy in doing this every week. So thank you for listening. Thank you for sticking with us. Thank you for listening to our ramble episodes. But I think this one actually, it played out well with in line with what has been going on the past couple weeks. So
yes. Oh, and before I close out, I do want to say a huge thank you to our listeners in Homestead, Florida, as well as our listeners in Forked River, New Jersey, because they are the top 2 places that downloads are happening. So I just wanted to give a shout out. I've been checking things out, and those are the top 2 locations for listening. So thank you, everybody who's listening. I mean, thank you across the board, but
to
really just honestly incredibly grateful to have everybody with us. Please reach out to us via our website or on Instagram. We are gearing up. We have our guests signing up to be on the podcast. So if you like this content, if you think you want to contribute something, if you have an idea for an episode, just reach out to us. You can get to us through our website, www.steelroseswomen.com. Or through Instagram at Steel Roses Podcast. But yeah, thank you all for being with us today.
And don't forget to check out our new Steel Roses Favorites with an S.com. We really do use all of those products. So it took us a little bit of time to pull that together. So check it out, because honestly, it's things that are near and dear to our homes that make our family lives better. So definitely things worth at least going to take a look at. So thank you again. We love you all. And then we'll be back next week.
Yeah. See you next week.